Hey, we're gonna make some good old New Orleans style French bread without the salt today. Have you ever just tried to make New Orleans style French bread and it just doesn't come out right? Well, today we're gonna teach you how, without the sodium. For those of you that don't need the sodium in your diet, it's gonna be without the sodium and it'll still taste delicious. We're gonna start with 28.8 ounces of bread flour. I have it in the bowl already, 28.8 ounces of bread flour. What I suggest is that you get yourself a good digital scale because the measurements need to be precise. If you're gonna make good bread, you need precise measurements. So, starting with the bread flour. Next ingredient is 1 packet of either the regular yeast or rapid rising yeast. 1 packet. If you have loose yeast, then you can use 1/4 ounce. Next is 3/4 teaspoon of sugar. 3/4 teaspoon of sugar, just regular granulated sugar. Next ingredient is 2.5 ounces of Vital Wheat gluten. If you can't have gluten, this is not for you. Turn this off. Nope, you don't want to watch this video. 2.5 ounces of Vital Wheat gluten. I bought mine in Whole Food. It's also available on the internet. Let's put that in there. Next is 2 teaspoons of diastatic malt powder. 2 teaspoons of diastatic malt powder. I bought it from Walmart on the internet. It is available on the internet. Next ingredient is my secret ingredient, 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger. 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger. Gives the bread a good rise. Next ingredient is absoric acid. Here, let me show you the bottle. I found this at Walmart, on the shelf at Walmart. It says it's a produce protector. Absoric acid, just 1/8 of a teaspoon. And then 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. Then that is all. Let's get the rest of that cornstarch in there. That is all of our dry ingredients. So the next thing I'm going to do is put this on the mixer using the whip and mix it up for a minute or two to get the dry ingredients nice and blended. And while that's mixing, we'll get out the canola oil. We're going to use 1 tablespoon of canola oil as soon as that is finished mixing. Okay, we've got 1 tablespoon in there. And the last ingredient is the water. So this is important. You need to use, I've had to use bottled water. When I use water out of the tap, it has too much chlorine in it. It tends to kill the yeast. The dough does not rise as well when I use the water out of the tap. I'm going to use bottled water. This is not a commercial for Aquafina, but I found that Aquafina tends to work good. And how we're gonna measure the water is interesting. We'll measure the water by weight, not by volume. I'm in New Orleans and it's a very humid day, so I'm gonna put 16.4 ounces of water by weight. And you may have to, in drier climates, you may have to put more. I've had to put as much as 16.6 ounces of water. So you'll have to experiment with that, but today we're going to go with 16.4 ounces of water. So I'm going to put it in the microwave for 1 minute. I'm trying to bring it up to a temperature of about 125 degrees. You don't want to go much over that. If you do, it will kill the yeast. So it's important that I check the temperature of the water, so I'm going to use a temperature gun. There we go. It's 118. That should be good enough. Let's put that in the bowl. Now we've got our liquid ingredients and our flour, and we're going to put it on the mixer with the dough hook on the slowest speed for about 1 minute, just to incorporate the liquid and the dry ingredients. Now that we've incorporated the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients for a minute, now we're going to knead the dough with the dough hook for 5 minutes. The dough is finished kneading now, so we're going to take it off of the mixer. Nice and smooth and soft. That's the way it should be. All the dry ingredients should be incorporated. Everything should be nice and smooth, almost like a newborn baby's skin. We'll put it in the bowl, and we're going to cover it with some plastic wrap. Like this. And then it's a nice, sunny, warm, humid day outside in New Orleans. So I'm going to put this outside and let it rise. I'll put it in the shade and let it rise for 1 hour and 30 minutes. So we'll be back in an hour and a half. Here we are, 1 hour and 30 minutes later, and your dough should look like this. You see, we have a nice rise here. It's puffing up like that. That's the way it should look. If it doesn't, the first place I would start would be with the water. I've had trouble with the water in the past, and give it another try. Okay, let's take off the plastic wrap carefully. There is a little stuck to the plastic wrap, but we'll let that be. Now we're going to scrape it out. Well, actually, I'm going to gently pull it away from the sides. Sort of scraping the sides as I pull it away. Now we have a nice big ball of dough. I'll put it down here on the mat. I use a pizza peel to cut this. So I'm going to cut it so that I'm going to use a little less than a half to make my French bread. The other amount, I'm going to put it back in the bowl and cover it up, and using that to make pizza, which I'll show you on a later video. So we're going to make 3 loaves. I'm going to cut this into thirds. Now we're going to roll it out into a French bread shape, like so. And then next step is optional. I have some barley flour here that's been toasted. Toasted it on a cookie sheet in the oven. And what I'll do is put this on the, I'm going to sprinkle it on the bread. Some barley flour here. It's been toasted in the oven on a cookie sheet. And I'm sprinkling it on the bread. And this will give it some extra flavor, especially since we don't have any salt in this bread. And roll it a little more. What I have here is a roasting pan. And inside the roasting pan, I have lined it, double lined it with aluminum foil. Double lined the bottom too with aluminum foil, and then placed in my French bread pan. This will hold the dough. So I'm gonna place this in the French bread pan like so, and then I'll roll out these other two, and we'll put 3 in there. There you go. We now have 3 loaves of French bread we're going to have, all in the pan. I'll place the cover on, and I'm going to place these back outside in the heat, and we'll let these rise for 45 minutes before we turn on the oven. So here we are, 45 minutes to an hour later. The oven's been preheated to 425. And let's take a look at the way the bread looks before we put it in. There you go. There's the shaped loaves, looking nice. Put the cover on. And we're going to place them in the oven for 36 minutes at 425. And we'll be back in 36 minutes. Okay, it's been 36 minutes later, so we're going to take the bread out of the oven. Oh, there you go. Smells delicious. 3 nice loaves of French bread. Ooh, it smells so good. Now we're going to make a po' boy. But before we do that, let me mention that when I was a kid growing up, French bread was crispy, a nice thin crispy crust on the outside and soft and fluffy on the inside. To obtain that crispy crust on the outside, after the bread cools down totally, put it back in the oven for maybe 5 minutes and then pull it back out, and you'll have that nice crispy thin crust on the outside. But let's go ahead and make a po' boy with this. A nice turkey and cheese po' boy with some low sodium turkey and some Swiss cheese that's only about 45 milligrams of sodium per slice. Here we go. So I'm gonna cut it in half. Use a nice serrated edge knife. And then cut it long ways. Spread that mayonnaise. Like to taste the mayonnaise in the very first bite I take. So I spread it all the way to the end. Some sliced tomatoes. Some lettuce. Shredded lettuce, shredded iceberg lettuce. There we go, some Swiss cheese. There we go, some turkey. And we have ourselves a beautiful French bread po' boy. delicious. Remember, the sun is always shining when you're baking French bread. Don't forget to subscribe, leave your comments below, and I'll see you next time.